Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie, here with my guy, Mr. Idris Salam, a.k.a. Bosco, from the Bronx.
Yep, what up?
Oh, man, This episode is titled The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Week 2 NFL recap. Yesterday was difficult, Idris. Not just for, say, people like you and I who love the New York Football Giants, but I'm taking it further and saying for the people that this is their money-making season, so to speak, in terms of the gambling aspect. Yesterday was not a friendly day for the logical gambler, as many an upset went down in the NFL. We had some key injuries that we're going to open up and speak on as well. Some underperformances from some of these Super Bowl contenders, mainly the Cowboys and 49ers, a couple of shockers there. A team that was supposed to be very bad through 2 weeks is making their fan base proud early. And we have our guys who, quite frankly, are doing things from a illogical standpoint, from just a lack of common sense on some grounds. Ineptitude is the proper word I was trying to grab. We're seeing a Giants organization that is rolling with pure ineptitude. You know, we've got a couple of other teams that are considered Super Bowl contenders that have not won a game yet. 3 of them off the top of my brain. So much to unpack. We'll be right back. Enjoy this intro. Okay, we are back. Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast here on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. All right, Idris, going to start it off here with the winless, the bad, and the underachieving. The Giants, the Panthers, the Titans, the Colts, the Jaguars, the Bengals, the Ravens, the LA Rams, and the Denver Broncos. Some of these are somewhat expected. Some of these are truly surprising. I'm going to start, I guess, with the Rams, the Ravens, and the Bengals. When you talk about high expectations to potentially make Super Bowl runs, 2 of those teams played each other in the Super Bowl a few years ago, that being the Bengals and the Rams. Chris Dixon, where you at, boy? Where you at?
J-Bad Jackson also.
0-2 Baltimore Ravens, the team that I said on our North preview would not be making the playoffs this year. They lose a disappointing one at home to the Vegas Raiders. Antonio Pierce getting the most out of what he has going there. Gardner Minshew wasn't great, but he was good enough. They win on a late field goal. The Colts, after almost beating the defending South champion Texans in week 1, come up rather flat against a Packer team that was missing their number 1 quarterback, not to mention that Jaden Reed played kind of dinged up. The Packers were able to win a low-scoring affair there. The Panthers are a different level of just pure bad. Our Giants get to play them in Germany. The Giants are a different level of just ineptitude, as I stated. Tennessee Titans, to me, are one of the better 0-2s because they've competed both weeks.
Yeah.
Jacksonville Jaguars, their offense is MIA. I think the Rams, the troubling thing about the Rams early on is that week one, you get a month-long injury which sets up an IR stay for Puka Nacua. And then the very next week, yesterday, former Super Bowl MVP Cooper Kupp is leaving the stadium in a walking boot. They've already suffered interior injuries on both the defensive and offensive lines. Are the Rams in trouble, Idris?
I think they are, man. When you got Puka Nacua out and you got Cooper Kupp, you got the 1 and the 2, man. Pretty much sitting on the bench, or even if one was able to come back, they're not 100%.
No,
and I mean Matthew Stafford is who he is. I mean, he's a good quarterback. Well, I'm saying better than this. He's a great quarterback, Super Bowl quarterback, MVP quarterback type. He has the game, but when you don't have your number one and your number two, man, I mean, he's not Peyton Manning, he's not Tom Brady who can say, okay, let's put this guy here. We're gonna still win. He's not any one of those two. So the Rams are in trouble, man. Luckily luckily the Niners lost, but you still have Arizona and Seattle both are looking good. You know, I mean, the Cardinals just beat them. So, and I think we both had them beating the Cardinals, but
yeah, I mean, week one, the Cardinals took the Bills to the distance. They played a game that honestly they could have won.
They could have won.
You know, Marvin Harrison Jr., after basically being a no-show in week one, showed why he was the first receiver taken off the board in week two.
Yep.
This is a team that we have felt for a while has showed glimpses of what they could be, mainly highlighting games last year they won against the NFC East. They did rather well against the two better teams in the NFC East. Carolina, we already know about them, ineptitude, and just coming over ESPN just a few minutes before we went live, Bryce Young is being benched tonight. Next week, rather. Bryce Young will be getting benched. The former number one overall pick looks like may very well be going down the edge of just being a pure bust. Pure bust.
You know, I always said what I say about Alabama quarterbacks, man. That's how they are, you know.
And I think the narrative, the only guys that have really stretched the narrative even a little better post guys like, you got to go all the way back to Namath, would be the teammates. Tua, who unfortunately knocked himself out. We'll get on him in a minute. And Jalen Hurts, who will be playing tonight for this guy's team, Daniel Nunez. You know, but the Bengals are another team. This is the second consecutive week where I bring them up. They did play a lot better. They were undermanned, missing T. Higgins. Joe Burrow played a decent game, good enough to potentially win. I know that there's been a lot of controversy about some of the calls that were not favorable to the Bengals. Anything that you want to expand on your opinion of the officiating in that particular game?
You know, it is what it is, man. There were some calls missed. I'm not gonna lie, and some calls may have favored the Chiefs, but that interference call people are crying about, that was interference. You know, the defender hit the receiver before the ball got there. I mean, yeah, it's close, but by the letter of the law, it's interference. You know, but I can see why other fans have an issue with officiating when it comes to the Chiefs, because a lot of it does seem biased, you know. I mean, but it is what it is, man. That's what we're seeing in the NFL. You know, it's just like with the NBA, where the stars or whatever, they get the calls, and sometimes the calls are just not right. So, you know, we'll have to see, man. You know,
I'm gonna bring back Nunez's comment when we hit on these guys, but he's pleased with the Niners and Cowboys both going down yesterday. Dallas Cowboys, I got to say that's shocking. I'm not saying that I expect Dak Prescott to be a Pro Bowler every Sunday. You know, every quarterback is going to have those forgettable days. I think the thing that I'm most alarmed with is that the Saints had so much success on every level against the Dallas defense that, yes, they lost Dan Quinn, but, you bring in Mike Zimmer, another very good coordinator, a man who knows how to run a defense. And, I didn't know what to take off of week one. I know the Panthers are god-awful and the Saints whipped them. But still, the beating the Saints put on them, maybe I owe that team an apology for not acknowledging that they might be a lot closer than any of us gave them credit for. And I think it's kind of wild because coming into the year with certain injuries on that O-line, we did not feel good about them at all. And most publications did not feel good about that Saints team.
Yeah, we both did, because I had Dallas beating them 37-17.
I was similar to that.
Yeah, early on, I was like, oh, man, this is going to be ugly. And, my thing is, in a lot of Cowboy fans, you know how I war with the Cowboy fans, but they're saying, well, you can't put this on Dak. You can't put this on Dak. That was a team meltdown period. The defense couldn't stop them. The offense couldn't move the ball. They couldn't score. Yeah, but they got in the red zone and kick field goals. Field goals are not going to win you the game unless you're the Giants. And your quarterback just got a big deal. And I'm going to use the same thing on Dak as I use with any other quarterback, whether Justin Herbert, whether it be Kyler Murray, whoever got a big deal over the last 2 or 3 years, that they say, they paid too much. I'm going to use the same thing on Dak. Dak has been in the league longer than every one of those quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, what's his name? Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray. He's been in the league longer than all of them. You've been in the league 9 years now. It's no longer blaming, well, there was a bad call on the offensive coordinator or the coach or or the receiver didn't make the catch. No, you've been in the league 9 years. They gave you a big deal, giant deal. This is your third huge deal you've gotten.
And week one, I didn't really feel that he had to do much, and I was actually quite impressed.
Right. And your job is to run the offense. If you're comparing yourself to the fans are comparing him to Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. Okay, then you got to beat Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. And this is why I say Romo is better than Dak. Reason being is Romo didn't have that number one defense for 5 years like Dak has had. He had that defense back when he first got in the league, 2006, 2007, 2008. He didn't have that. He didn't have that dominating running game all the time with that dominating offensive line. When we watch Romo play, that Cowboys would be down 21 points. He would bring that team back. Yes, he might throw an interception to the end, but they relied on Romo to win the game because they knew the defense was horrible.
Romo was quite the gunslinger too. Go ahead, Idris. Keep going.
So you have to put that same thing on Dak. Romo did it. He didn't win it because he didn't have the tools, but when Romo was on the field, okay, we got a chance to come back. With Dak, when they get down big, oh man, well, our team was not built to score points. Your teams are built to score points against bad teams. I don't want to hear that nonsense. Same thing you said about Daniel Jones overpaid. Daniel Jones had a good game yesterday. He did. So I don't want to hear that from Cowboy fans about Dak. He stunk up the joint, just like the defense did. 2 interceptions, 1 fumble that should have been recovered by the Saints. A bunch of overthrows, the interception, the first one, and a receiver slip. But the rest of that stuff, that's on him. He's the leader of the team. You give him the props when they win. You give him the hell when he loses. Bottom line.
Well, the thing that's interesting is, I know that with this emerging thing coming up with the Hall of Fame class, how Eli Manning is going to be on this particular ballot. I know that I've heard a lot of Eli naysayers or people who just don't think he was that good, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. With the 118 career record. So reason I bring up Eli is because Eli is a decent starting point to make a comparison because of the fact, while Eli did so many wonderful things in his career, the two postseason runs, the utter dominance over the Washington Redskins at the time. Kind of a mixed bag with the Dallas Cowboys. Early on in that rivalry, he got the better of Romo. Later on in that rivalry, Romo evened up and went ahead of it as Dak, with the exception of 16, just beating the Giants in general. The only 2 losses that Dak has ever suffered to the G-Men wasn't 16 his rookie year, the year that Romo got hurt in the preseason and Dak basically took his job. Where I'm going with this is that, okay, so Eli, ownership of the Packers, ownership of the Cowboys when it mattered, ownership of Tom Brady, Bill Belichick. Oh, but this is the same Eli who, on the flip side of things, never beat the man he was traded for, Phillip Rivers, 0-5 for the career. This is a guy that just always stunk when he played the Vikings for some reason. There's just certain teams that have certain guys' numbers, But the point I'm making is, if you're looking at regular season metric stats, Dak Prescott is among the best year in and year out. Those playoff numbers, however, with the exception of some games, okay, I'll get a game where I thought Dak played well, take it back to that 16 season. I felt that he lost the shootout, but he played rather well, especially for a first-time playoff guy. But we've seen other games, like those 2 49er games, for instance, or even last year when a lot of the point value was in garbage time when Green Bay was kicking their butts.
Yeah.
I believe that in order for Dak to go down as a Dallas legend in the same breath as a Troy Aikman, in the same breath as a Roger Staubach, it goes without saying that he has to hoist the Lombardi. I think Tony Romo was somewhere in between because of the sheer fact that you make a reasonable point that Tony Romo did not have necessarily the same amount of help for as long. He had a good defense early on, to your point, and he had a good defense at the very end of his career, which Dak actually benefited from immediately, because I've said this many times in the past, on and off air, that if Tony Romo would have suited up for that Green Bay Packer game, I think the Cowboys actually win that game. But the Cowboys made the proper decision because you didn't want to shatter a rookie's confidence when he had the upside and Romo was on the way out, given his horrible injury history. So having said all that, and to the best of my ability, just trying to make sense of any and all things that have to do with this, the Dallas Cowboys, you could talk about their defense. You could talk about their coach. You could talk about CeeDee Lamb. You could talk about everything. They will go as far as number 4 will take them. And the bottom line is number 4 has not been able to take them past round 2 since he's been in the NFL. Is it all his fault? No, of course it's not. That's not reasonable.
Right.
But I do believe that if the Dallas Cowboys fall short this year, when you consider that they reinvested in 2 of their 3 stars, this era's triplets, one of the triplets happens to pay D. He'll get paid, hopefully, by that organization. His name's Micah Parsons. Then this is just going to be one of those another chapters in a very storied franchise that just has not been able to take it up that next ramp during this century. Their place is very safe in NFL history. They have the most NFC East titles by far. They are frequently in the playoffs. They have a phenomenal fan base that can be seen anywhere in this country. And they have a ton of Hall of Famers and a great lineage. But the bottom line is, you invested in Dak Prescott to take you to the next level. If it doesn't happen, you can't even dare put him in the breath of Aikman and Romo or even Staubach, because the numbers are not better if you're really measuring it on what era they played in, there's all kinds of metrics. Romo is a better quarterback than Dak, and I stand on that.
I'm not even putting him in the same thing as Don Meredith. Don Meredith got them to a Super Bowl. They didn't win, but he got them there.
There's a lot of ways to break it.
He lost by field goal.
Danny White had some good years, but he played on some
And he was a punter too.
Yeah, he always had the best help.
Yeah.
Before we move it along to some of the positive surprises in the league, I wanted to ask you quickly, what are your thoughts on the Baltimore Ravens? And we'll wrap up this segment with that disappointment in D.C.
Dude, I don't know what's going on with them. They just don't look like they usually look. I think with Lamar Jackson, I think he's not playing the game that he's used to playing, because you have Derrick Henry, so you got to give him the ball.
So you feel to a level that Lamar is almost like, how would I say this properly? Almost that his best offensive attributes are almost being caged up a little.
Yeah.
And there's always been this outcry for a lot of quarterback purists that say Lamar has to be more of a pocket man. I feel like the last couple of years he has succeeded doing that at a better metric. But, some of this is on coaching too, because I remember last year's AFC title game. Zay Flowers made a horrific mistake. Taunting penalties that cost him yardage. Lamar made a poor decision on a throw he shouldn't have made. They saw the Chiefs kind of bully them around a little. They said, okay, let's go get King Henry. And I myself said that the good part of this could be that they could put people to sleep, so to speak, lean on them in late games. But early on, I don't think this is a panic button thing, because you know how talented your team is, but this is a problem that I see for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
They're having trouble covering tight ends.
Yep.
Patrick Queen not being there is a big deal.
Big deal.
And while the Pittsburgh Steelers might still be working out their quarterback kinks, one thing that cannot be denied is that in 2 consecutive weeks, if you average out the points given up, they 10-6, is that right? 10-7? 10-6, something like that. So basically, you're giving up around 8 points a game. Hard to lose if you're that good on defense. And you can make a case that the opponents, this and that. Mile High, I don't give a damn what year it is, what roster it is. Mile High is not an easy place to go in and do anything in.
Oh, no. The altitude is something.
The Steelers, to me right now, quite frankly, the Steelers are doing what I expected from them. I felt that this is a team that never truly needed great quarterback play. Now, Ben was a great quarterback. We know this. You had the 3 Bs, the killer Bs. You had Le'Veon, Antonio, and Ben. Yeah. But this is a different era of Steeler football, similar to like what I came accustomed to seeing when they had Bill Cowher. When your quarterback was never truly great, but your defense compensated so much, guys were not afraid to run the ball and just win dirty-ass, ugly football games, because that's one thing that we got so accustomed to seeing with these guys, is that they literally were not afraid to win the ugly games.
Nope. I agree, man. They just don't seem like they're in the same type of. It's like they're out of their element, I don't know. I think they'll get it together. But they can't afford to get too far behind, because the Steelers don't look great, but they win. Cincinnati, they start 0-2 every year, so eventually they're gonna. And it's when Cincinnati playing KC, that's always a toss up. So I'm not even gonna look at that loss as a bad loss. Cleveland won, and we don't know what they have. They won yesterday, but we don't know what they have. But still, they won. So now you're 0-2, and the AFC is pretty strong this year, man. We've seen that by the games played yesterday.
Yeah, so the AFC is strong right now, and the thing with, like I said, I basically think I gave a logical explanation with the Steelers. The Cleveland Browns war of attrition kind of game in Jacksonville, and I personally cannot wrap my head around what the hell is going on with Jacksonville's offense.
Man, look here. It's like they played good last week in Miami. They blew the game, then you come back and you're like, oh, what are we doing here? I don't know. And I've always had my knock with Trevor Lawrence coming out of Clemson. Now, I'm going to stick to it with him. I think he's a good quarterback, but there's something stopping him from being great. I don't know. I don't think it's coaching, because Doug Peterson's there. I mean, look what he had in Philly.
Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl with a combination of Nick Foles and, to be fair, similar to the 90 Giants.
Yeah.
I always tell people, Hostetler won the game, but we don't get to that game without Sims.
Yeah.
And I will give Wentz, believe it or not, the same credit, currently backing up Mahomes. The Eagles don't have that beautiful start without Carson Wentz. He was an MVP candidate that particular year.
And see, Doug Peterson was in KC, So I'm not going to put it on coaching. This has got to be on them. I mean, you got to perform. Etienne has to run the ball. Trevor Lawrence has to lead that offense, man. This is what they paid you that big money for. You got the quarterback coach you need to succeed, because we saw it when he took over from Peterson took over for Urban Meyer.
And I forgive Lawrence for his rookie year, because Urban Meyer just brought such a toxic culture.
Yeah, but we seen the jump from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson. We saw like, well, this guy can play some football, but he's still making those mistakes.
I can't truly understand it. And then you look at the Christian Kirk factor. Yeah, Brian Thomas, I'm very impressed with early on at LSU. He was Malik Neighbors' wide receiver mate over there. But this is a thing that like really throws me off. Christian Kirk was really starting to emerge as the popular target. And when you get a flashy rookie that's a bona fide number one, you expect that things are going to be a little different. But from a how would you say, a security blanket standpoint, I really thought that Christian Kirk was going to be producing similar to what we see with Shakir in Buffalo. The New York Giants. Idris, listen, man. I understand that sometimes you unofficially tank and sometimes you just let it burn to see where it goes. But I think that Brian Dable, Joe Shane playing a very complicated, risky game, because you look at a person like a Graham Gano. He got hurt last year. They brought him in very questionably in a Jet game. We had a similar situation, and it was raining cats and dogs in East Rutherford for that one. A year later, Graham Gano pops up on your injury report between Friday and Saturday. You have a backup kicker in the organization that you could have elevated to the 53-man roster.
Right.
They opted not to. 3 different opportunities were squandered. One was a missed extra point by Jamie Gillen.
Yep.
The other 2 were missed 2-point conversions.
Right.
And listen, what was
the difference in the game?
3 points.
Those 3 plays.
And I also mentioned that, yes, the Giants need to look past Daniel Jones and figure out what they're going to do at that position for moving forward, because it has been proven that he's not the guy. He's not the guy on that level. But this is what I take issue with. You have Giant fans waiting for this man coming out of the tunnel, harassing him on the way to his car in MetLife Stadium.
Yeah.
There were plenty of Giant fans in D.C. That's why I bring this up. I know we weren't home yesterday. Yeah. But the thing that cracks me up is that I saw some ignorance on Twitter. Yeah. I actually replied to the guy saying how Giant fans' expectations have fallen so far that they're actually trying to beef up this 178-yard, 34 rushing yards, 2-touchdown game. What kills me about the stupidity in that statement alone is that the New York Giants only had the ball for a little over 22 minutes, and in those 22 minutes, they produced 3 touchdowns.
Right. And
which means that your offense was efficient.
Exactly. You know what? And the thing about it, this year, we actually got an offensive line.
Yes, they do. Only 1 sack given up, and I admitted on the show last week that Jones was responsible for 3 of the 5. So you can only credit the offensive line giving up 3 sacks in my eyes from those metrics.
Right.
The point I'm getting at here is I'm not going to pin this on a rookie after the beautiful game that he had. I'm not going to pin it on Devin Singletary, even though he put 1 on the ground, because he was having a very good game, just under 100 yards.
He was.
But when your defense gives up 415 yards.
There's no excuses.
And this isn't the 85 Bears. I don't want to hear about no goal line stands. The Washington Commanders shot themselves in the foot every time they were in the red zone.
They could have pulled on. I put on Facebook, I think, after like the 3rd or 4th drive. It was before halftime. I said, Washington should be blowing us out. They were going up and down the field. They just couldn't put it in the end zone. I don't care about goal line stands, because against it, you got a rookie quarterback.
And I don't have an issue with
somebody else. We're roasted.
I don't have an issue with people being over Daniel Jones. I have been one of his firmest supporters, and I myself have admitted that I am to the end of my line with him as well.
You and I both.
But this is my thing. Call it like it is and pretend that you watched the game if you didn't. Because, when you have the efficiency, which he did yesterday, he was efficient.
Not turn the ball over. Yeah.
Everybody just looks at stats and doesn't watch the game. It's like 22 minutes worth of work. Your opponent had the ball for 37 plus minutes, and not one of their drives ended with a punt.
Right.
And I'm not going to count before the half when they opted to take a knee. That's not a real drive.
That's not a real drive, nah.
That's not a real drive. The Giants, Malik Neighbors, catchable ball. He's forgiven. What I like about his frustration is that it shows that it really matters to him. He goes on record saying that he let the veterans down, and I'm going to keep it a buck. No, young man, the veterans let you down. Exactly. Veterans like Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah.
Veterans like Brian Burns, had once again stabilized. The only guy on that defensive line that deserves any praise right now is number 97, Dexter Lawrence.
You know what? I was telling Q earlier today, I said, this team has fallen. Like I said, I've been watching them since 1972 as an 8-year-old. And I look at it this way. We went 10-7 2 seasons ago with a quarterback, a running back, and a bunch of practice squad players who played their asses off all season long. We made it to the playoffs. Yes, we beat Minnesota, but we could have beat them during the season too. We beat them on their field, and we lost. But that team was basically a patchwork team the whole season. What happened? We've gotten worse over time. In 2 seasons.
Personally, I don't think that Brian Dable nor Wink Martindale, now Shane Bowen, are making enough adjustments, because I saw a lot of close games that the Giants lost last year. The Jet game was maddening last year.
Oh, that was horrible.
The Rams game was maddening. The Buffalo game was maddening. And the point I'm making is, in addition to last year, you had your horrible offensive line play. You have your quarterback who has a neck injury. Then he tears his knee. Then he comes back and stinks out the joint in week 1. Plays much better week 2, but you don't want to overemphasize how well he played because of the fact that he has always played well against that particular Washington squad.
Right.
The thing is that I want that same energy for what I'm watching. Last year, this week I've seen people cry, "Oh, I miss Wink." We were 25th in the league in defense last year.
The only thing we were good in the defense last year was the red zone. That was it.
We induced turnovers because Wink blitzes to a point of no return.
Right.
But the ugly side of that constant blitzing is that you give up a lot of big plays.
Right.
And
that's what we did.
And it's like, after 2 games, I'm not ready to completely quit on Shane Bowen. I'm just saying what I see. And what I see is we're playing too far off the receivers. We're giving up too many easy first downs. We're getting little to no penetration. The only time that we were able to really get after quarterback Jaden Daniels was more on coverage sacks.
Yeah.
The Giants did get one horrific call go against them. Zach Ertz basically ran over Deonte Banks, and somehow they called a defensive holding on Banks, which was totally ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the one time that you could say the Giants truly should have forced a punt. Jamie Gillum not kicking it into that new zone, penalty on the kickoff, starting at the 40 for a key drive. Yeah, but the bottom line is, even after Neighbors drops that ball, they still had to go a long ways to get into field goal range. Austin Seibert, this is what I mean about the contrast in stupidity. You got Graham Gano, who you literally know is injured. You have 52 dressed, but you're allowed to dress 53. I don't understand.
Yeah, you got to have 2 kickers. If you know you're going into the season with a kicker that's questionable, and you know he's on the injury report, you got to bring the kicker in.
Dude, I remember in the 90s, during the Dave Brown, Kent Graham era, we had Brad DeLuiso and we had David Treadwell. Treadwell was a Reeves player from Denver.
Yeah.
But the value of DeLuiso was that he had the bigger leg. Now, mind you, this is an NFL where kicking anything more than 48 yards was not as frequent as now. The kickers are a lot more advanced now with distance and such.
Yeah. Please don't say Dave Brown again.
It's the era. The point to be made is, all the way back then, they were wise enough to realize they made a sacrifice to carry 2 kickers. Yeah. But the fact that you have one hurt and you have an open roster spot and you still don't do it, what the hell is going on in East Rutherford, New Jersey?
I have no clue. After last week's game, I had told myself, and even with the loss yesterday, I was like, oh well, because I told myself, you know what, I'm not gonna let this team run up my blood pressure anymore.
No, it's disappointing because you just hate seeing bad football.
It's very disappointing because, like I said, we had a team in 2022 that was basically a patchwork team.
I think there's a few variables that favored us. Number one starts with the fact that that particular year we played a very weak AFC South.
True.
If you take away our AFC 5-0 record, because we did beat a very good Baltimore team that year in comeback fashion, we won undefeated against the South. That particular team only won one divisional game, and I've said this before, I believe that is the only time in NFL history that a team that has only won one divisional game qualified for the playoffs. Oh, and there's another dubious distinction that our wonderful Giants achieved yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
You scored 3 touchdowns to an opponent's 0 and still lose. That has never happened in the history of the NFL, and that's the kind of history the Giants are starting to make now.
And but that 2022 team, what I liked about them, you looked at them and said, they want to play. They want to play. They want to win. This team, I'm not saying they don't want to win, because every player wants to win that gets on the field. But our defense, 415 yards.
I mean, buddy, they were running the ball at will. It looked like one of those games in the 90s when the Giants were getting older, or when they were in transition in the beginning of the Reeves era, where you would see a team like a Dallas Cowboys run right through them during the Emmett and Moose era. But the point I'm making is, like, Brian Daboll, since year one, has not been able to make proper adjustments, and it shows his coaching inexperience in that seat. Joe Shane, I ain't even talking about that Saquon crap anymore. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. At the end of the day, I wholeheartedly believe Saquon was intent on leaving.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about draft picks or the Evan Neal bust. Maybe Kayvon, looking at it now, but Mike Zappi has some value to saying that maybe Kayvon isn't that alpha dog that we thought he was. Because if you look at Kayvon's numbers last year, his best games were against banged-up offensive lines in the New York Jets and the Washington Commanders twice. Most of his sack production happened against bad teams.
But the thing about that, I'm like, you got Brian Burns on the other side. What are you doing, man?
Well, the thing that I can't figure out, and this really confuses me, and just being honest, Brian Burns did more with less in Carolina and was putting up some phenomenal numbers.
Right.
So I don't know if it's a technique thing. Personally, I think Kayvon needs to pick up some kind of move, because it does seem like he has a propensity for being too predictable on his bull rush technique. He's a great athlete. We know this.
Yeah.
I do want to shout out a couple of things that did go good. You mentioned the offensive line. Drew Phillips played a very good game yesterday.
Damn good game, man.
And Bobby Okereke as well as Micah McFadden were in a lot of plays. McFadden pissed me off.
Yeah.
Our tackling is terrible. Can I just say that? Our tackling is absolutely
it seems like it never gets better. It seems like we need a guy like, I know Harbaugh is in LA, but we need a guy like him who teaches tackling.
Yeah, it's weird, because it's just gotten to a point where it feels like we're never truly prepared. I still can't wrap my brain around not carrying a kicker. The hell with the draft, and the hell with who's good and who's not that you drafted, and free agents and all that other stuff. I cannot wrap my head around how you can be a professional football team and not be ready for that scenario.
Because, regardless of what happens, you're going to need a kicker.
And, you're either talking
win
about
the game, kick the ball off, you're going to need a kicker.
But it just makes you feel like the combo of Tisch and Mara are very much checked out of what matters in football, because it's like, even on Hard Knocks, and I hate to admit this, but I have no choice otherwise to do so. You have Mara walking around looking half like he's already like subdued in some other place.
Yeah.
Giving Joe Shane the little half-ass I'm the owner talk.
Yeah.
Brian Daboll saying he wants a quarterback. Joe, I don't know. I don't know how this breaks, but I have a hard time believing that if we go 1-15, 1-16, 2-15, something in that neighborhood, that it's not a clean sweep on another regime yet again, quarterback, GM, and head coach. I don't know how that's avoided. With
Tisch and Mara, I followed them over the past, I don't know how many years. I mean, going back to Reese. And it seems like those two are not on the same page with each other. I mean,
it does kind of strike you that way, doesn't it?
It seems like, I've said like a few years ago, I said it seems like Tish has more passion for it than Mara. It's like
sometimes I think Mara holds on to this team because he doesn't want to disrespect the honor of his legendary mother and father.
Yeah,
I really believe that there's a value to that.
That's how I feel, man. I felt that way. I felt that way during the Tom Coughlin era. I like these two are not seeing eye to eye.
Because when you truly think about this, right? When you truly think about this, the NFL kind of appointed us, George Young. Do a little reading on that.
Yeah.
Bill Parcells ran the war rooms.
Yeah.
Jerry Reese, while he did have a phenomenal 07 draft class, truth be told, those were Ernie Accorsi's teams.
Exactly.
Not so much 2011, but more so 07. The point is that Ernie Accorsi set up a nice blueprint for Jerry Reese to navigate with.
Right.
Reese messed up with the free agency prior to his dismissal.
Yeah, big time.
I said this to Steve Azul of the Bleed Blue Show. I'll say it again. I personally believe that from a karma level, the New York Giants really stepped on their dicks when they allowed Tom Coughlin to leave the building when they were going to be coming into such a wonderful money situation. They go out and get Ben McAdoo. Jerry Reese pays all that money for 5 defensive players because he couldn't draft worth a shit.
Right.
McAdoo's gone within 2 years. Spagnuolo had an opportunity to kind of rein them in. He gets overlooked, and they let him go and walk away. He goes to Kansas City and becomes an even better coordinator than he already was with Philly.
One of the greatest coordinators of all time.
Absolutely. And then you bring in Pat Shurmur, a guy who was coaching the right system for Daniel Jones, the West Coast offense. I don't like Dable as a play caller right now. I don't like Dable as a motivator.
No.
I don't like Dable even as a mathematician because 53 is what you need and 52 is what you send. I don't understand that. I will never understand that.
You got 53. Use 53.
Rant over New York Giants. Go get some friggin' help, and they'll be stupid enough to win that game in Germany and avoid getting the 1 pick.
Yeah.
Woo!
Maybe. Depends on who Carolina's starting.
My God. The surprise is the Minnesota Vikings and the New England Patriots ran 2 of Randy Moss's former teams. I'm going to start with Brett's guys, Chanel's guys, the Patriots. Defensively, they have been playing stingy. They have not been doing a lot of exotic offensive play calling, but the truth of the matter is that Gerard Mayo has these guys playing and believing in themselves in the early going, and I have to praise the young head coach.
Maybe they're better than we thought.
And I'm going to double down on that. I'm going to double down on that statement because you have a Minnesota Vikings team who I got to shout out our man Zapp again.
Yeah.
Like Zappy said, these guys aren't going to be as bad as you think. They are currently in sole possession of first place in the NFC North.
Yeah, my 4 wins might go by the wayside.
I got news for you, Idris. No BS. This Minnesota team can make the playoffs.
Dude, look here. When they beat the Giants last week, I said,
I didn't think anything from it.
But the way they went out and just went at Frisco, man.
Yes, sir.
Sam Darnold, dude.
Bro, this is 2 consecutive seasons that they've beaten the San Francisco 49ers with 2 different quarterbacks.
Sam Darnold, dude. Yeah, I mean, he's in the right system.
I'm going to extend this a little further. New York Jets get a win in Tennessee, but I'll be honest, I am not overly impressed with what they got cooking over there in terms of the coaching.
You said
I think they have a phenomenal roster, but I'm not convinced that Robert Saleh is the man for that particular job. It would be kind of ironic if Darth Hoodie comes out of retirement and goes to Gang Green, considering that he wanted no part of it the first time around and was only their coach for like 24 hours.
You know what? I'd rather have Saleh in New York and in blue, because at least he'll motivate that team.
I think it's still a means to a bad end. The New York Giants need an offensive philosophy teacher that has to do with this century.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell Brian Dable's doing. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's not a good coordinator and that he hasn't built up quarterbacks. But it just seems like on a regular basis, adjustments are not made. Shane Bowen made no adjustments on defense yesterday either.
0.
But I'm going to say this about these Vikings. Aaron Jones, chip on his shoulder. got released by Green Bay unceremoniously. Sam Darnold, a former top 3 pick, never, ever had the talent that he has now. And Hockenson isn't even healthy. Imagine if he comes back healthy.
Ooh.
O-line's playing very well. Defense is playing very well. And I said this on IG on my way to pick up some groceries real quick in the truck. I made mention that the power of suggestion is a very real thing.
Oh, yeah.
And when you are playing for a young man who lost his life ever so tragically before your season started, and you are dedicating your season to that young man, it is a bond that brings people together in a much more poignant and powerful way. And the death of Kyrie Jackson, in my opinion, has kind of galvanized this Minnesota team. And I don't think there's some lucky fluke. I don't believe in moral victories, but that week 1 loss doesn't nearly look as bad after they beat the defending NFC champions.
I tell you what, Richie, find me a team in the NFL who lost a player who didn't wind up having a real good season. You know, like when Corey Stringer passed away, Minnesota had a pretty good season that year.
I forgot about that. That was in the Dennis Green era, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And the kid from KC, not too long ago, who shot himself and shot his girlfriend.
I remember that.
That was like the next year is when the Chiefs went on that run. They started their run. So watch out for Minnesota, man. I think Sam Darnold, he's in the right. He got the offense he's used to. He's got the right offense because they built that offense for JJ McCarthy, and they're kind of like the same quarterback. Yeah, and he looks so comfortable, dude. I mean, watch out for the Vikings, man. Watch out.
Yeah, and I want to say big kudos go out to a couple of teams that are enjoying the early part of this season. One of my kudos, undeniably, Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting a little bit of small revenge after last year's playoff departure, beating the defending NFC North champion Detroit Lions. That's a big morale boost for a team like a Buccaneers who has been subjected to ridicule of being like, oh, the NFC South sucks. They just keep winning a bad division. No, the Buccaneers are a good team, guys. Let's make that clear.
Did you see the move Baker Mayfield put on a touchdown run he had?
Yes, I certainly did. That was rather interesting.
Set my man down.
That was rather interesting. Baker Mayfield is a true competitor, and it's cool to see that he has his career back on track. Kudos to the Green Bay Packers, bro. Malik Willis coming in, injured Jordan Love. I'll be honest, I did not feel good about them going in, but they are where they need to be.
He went back to the place that let him go. But he went to play against the team that let him go.
That's coming up this week. Yeah, they're going to be playing Tennessee this week. Go to
the team that let him go.
Yeah, going to be some storylines attached to that one. I said that the Titans are a good 0-2. I feel that they're competing. The Jaguars are a horrific 0-2. I already made myself clear on that.
Yeah.
Other shout outs that I'm thinking of before we do our Monday night preview. The Steelers kind of covered them already. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. Don't have to over embellish or overemphasize them. Antonio Pierce, man, good for you.
Yeah.
Antonio Pierce is definitely doing his thing. But these two teams right here, the Minnesota Vikings, New England Patriots, they have so much respect for me right now because the Patriots, and this is wild. I called overtime for Seattle, New England yesterday.
Yeah. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, I did
it's
call
funny
overtime.
When it went overtime. I was like, damn, Richie said that too.
Final thought before we hit on tonight's Monday night game. The future of Tua Tagovailoa after yet another scary injury, the irony, just the pure irony of it, is that the collision happens with DeMar Hamlin, who came back from something that sadly I think most of us thought he would never come back for. And I ain't talking about football. I'm talking about life. And, Class A move on the part of Mike McDaniel, sharing with the media that he said, you're the quarterback of your family first. He literally gave him a kiss on the head out of pure concern.
Yeah. And
I personally believe that Mike McDaniel, in that moment and in future moments, sees this bigger than the game. And, Stephen Ross had a rather shameful moment, as did the Dolphins, because of the fact that, Tua Tagovailoa was not so long ago put in a position where he shouldn't have even been on the field. If I'm to his family, I am trying to bargain with him to walk away from the game that he loves because it's the risk just doesn't match the reward. You can retire and be a very wealthy man and still have your faculties.
I agree. I think, man, and the hit. I wouldn't even want to call it a hit. It wasn't that violent, man. That's the thing. It wasn't that violent of a hit. I mean, yeah, he hit the ground, but
I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you're saying, but because of the angle of approach that he took and not being able to slide or get down.
It was, yeah. Right.
And the sad thing is, like when you're on a highway and you almost sense that two cars are going to do something really bad to each other?
Yeah.
It's what it felt like watching that even in real time, not even the replay. And I was just like, oh no. Not again, yeah. And I respect the kid showing determination, trying to do what's best for his team. On the contrast, the Buffalo Bills, last thing before our Monday night game.
Yeah.
Yes, Steph Diggs is gone. We get it. He's a nice fit for Houston. But I must admit, Josh Allen is in a position now where the numbers are going to be down a little, but the balance of the way that they are running offense right now, and the extraction of Ken Dorsey, your offensive coordinator is kind of just feeding Josh Allen everything that he needs in terms of you're taking better care of the football. You are enhancing the game of James Cook, and what's most impressive to me about Buffalo in week 2 and in week 1, more so week 2. Is that you're nursing so many injuries, and yet your defense played at such a high level against one of the most dynamic offenses in the NFL.
Yeah. Dorsey. Yeah. I mean, that offense, man. They're more balanced. I mean, I can say they're more run, but they're kind of like close to being balanced. And you're not making Josh Allen, like I said, chuck the ball to Diggs all the time. And see,
it makes them less predictable,
right? Because now you're like, okay, now who are they going to now? And I think that helps them. The monkey is off their back in terms of, okay, they got to get to the Super Bowl because no one's expecting them to get to the Super Bowl this year, so they don't have that pressure on them anymore.
I must admit, though, through 2 short weeks, they, in my opinion, in terms of the total package, offense and defense, they are one of the 2 best teams in the AFC, along with Kansas City. Because while Pittsburgh is playing lights out defense, I don't trust that offense just yet.
Nah, I don't either. Not yet.
And the 0-2 Ravens, final thing I want to say on them.
Yeah.
They are talented enough to overcome the bad 0-2 start, but I am sticking with what I said initially. Chris Dixon, I'm sticking with it, pal. I told you. You came at me and said, I'm not respecting this organization and all this other stuff. I feel that the way that their season ended was a lot more than just a heartbreak. I feel that it trickled down. I think you got Derrick Henry a year or two too late. Not saying the man can't play.
Yeah.
Your most potent weapon is kind of being forced to play differently, to Idris's point, and I do think that is affecting you guys winning, and I already made my point about Patrick Queen. 2 tonight, we've got the Birds against the Birds. The Falcons, the Dirty Birds, against the Philadelphia Eagles. This is going to be a fun game. I know that Kirk Cousins doesn't have the best primetime record, but I think that what could be an equalizer to keep this game close for a while is the fact that the super talented A.J. Brown will not be suiting up tonight, which puts Devontae Smith in a number 1 receiving role. How do you think this plays out tonight?
I think Atlanta has a chance. Veteran quarterback.
Idris, I think you're breaking just a little here.
But
here you go. Okay, you're back.
Oh, my bad. I'm going to flip my choice and go Atlanta in the upset.
Really?
I think, yeah, I'm going to. Yeah, I just got this feeling that golly, Kirk Cousins, man, B.J. Robinson, Chris Algiers, golly, man. I'm gonna go Falcon. I'm going Dirty Birds, man. I had Philly last week, but I gotta change it. I'm flopping, man. I'm flopping.
I wouldn't bet this game, and I'm not, but I will say that
Mm-hmm.
Eagles 31, Falcons 23. The reasons why the Eagles have had a mastery in the last couple of seasons of winning one possession, one score games.
True that.
The difference in this game, in my opinion, is going to be Saquon Barkley yet again.
Yeah.
I believe Saquon Barkley, I don't know if he's going to top his week one performance. I hope he does because I got him in fantasy, but I think Saquon's going to go for a solid 100-yard game, hitting pay dirt twice, and I do believe that they're going to win the turnover battle. There is some value to the fact that Kirk Cousins has not been all that good on primetime. If the Philadelphia Eagles can stymie the Atlanta Falcons running game and force Kirk Cousins, who is a statue, he doesn't have that mobility anymore.
Right.
I believe that you're going to have yet another primetime performance from Kirk Cousins, who I think the world of as a human, but wide receivers coach Aaron Moorhead, despite the fact that he's going to be missing his number one weapon in that receiving room, still has a lot of healthy options. That is a very deep receiving room, so I don't think that the Eagles are not going to be okay. And I think it's an opportunity from an audition standpoint for Devontae Smith to prove to this organization that he can be at a performance height of a number one receiver. And this is a perfect opportunity to show that.
I think everything you said, man. I think with Atlanta, I don't think they're going to stop 26. I mean, I just think 26 is going to get his thing, period. And I think it'll be a situation like how they defend, like in NFL, how they defend certain players like LeBron and defend Jordan. We got to let him get his, but we got to stop the rest of the team. I think that's the approach they're going to have to take with Philly. Because Saquon is going to get his. I mean, 26, my bad.
Yeah, it's gonna come down to.
You didn't catch that, did you?
No, I caught it. It's gonna come down to if they can win their one-on-ones. I mean, Devontae Smith getting moved up to number one receiver, I think he's capable. But it's going to be a new challenge. Jalen Hurts might have to look in different directions. Maybe Goddard surprises people and has a night.
Yeah.
Saquon is also very dangerous coming out of that backfield in an offense that is more fluid than his previous employer and an offense that is able to show off some of his dual threat capabilities where he can be the pass catcher and really hurt you on two sides of it.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to make Hurts throw, but not – they're going to have to make Hurts throw under pressure. They're going to have to make him run and throw and always think and everything else. They got to make him see ghosts, just like Sam Darnold said he felt back when he played for the Jets. They're going to have to hit him because 26 is going to get his, period. He's going to get his.
Yeah, I expect this particular year one, because it's the first year with the new organization, the organization that gave him a fully guaranteed contract. I feel that everything is lined up for Saquon Barkley to have that career year and potentially top his best year ever of 2018 when he won NFL Rookie of the Year. He's healthy. He's playing behind.
Oh man,
he's playing behind a better offensive line. And let's keep it a buck, even though we don't like this team. He has better coaching.
Yep, way better.
He has a better head coach. He has a better offensive line coach.
Organization.
The receivers. That receiving coach in Philadelphia, look at the resume. That man has been around some great programs.
That organization from top to bottom is better than what he had
defensively. Yeah. We can bitch, moan, complain, and all this other stuff. And we all have done it on some metric or layer, loving our New York Giants. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's about Joe Shane and the love and the feelings. I think this is about Saquon Barkley identifying that this was the best situation for him to win in a short career in the grand scheme of things. And I'm going to do a little retread on one thing. I want to actually give this man a little bit of credit on the human level. Saquon Barkley showed a lot of class reaching out to Daniel Jones.
Yeah, he did.
Hey, I'm not happy about the way things played out, but I'm smart enough to know that there's two sides to everything. And at the end of the day, it is a business. For Idris, I'm Richie, and I got to get back to my business. Idris, thanks for being here today. Great show as always. Daniel Nunez, thanks for your always being involved. We got to get Nunez back on the show in the near future as well. I think this is going to be a good year for Nunez being an Eagle fan. If you haven't
Nunez, I say 125, man, for 26. 125, man.
Yeah, if you give me that stat line that Nunez popped up, I'm going to be 2-0 in fantasy. For Idris, I am Richie. Have a great Monday. Make good decisions, and I hope that this is a very peaceful and profitable Monday going into the new week. Show announcements to come in the near future. As you know, usually tag teaming with the Casual Convo Show, you will see us on every Wednesday for the NFL previews. And I also am going to be popping in a little more frequently with baseball getting hot, coming down the stretch. And with my man, Aaron Judge, refinding that home run stroke. The Yankees are getting close to clinching a playoff berth. 3 games up on the Baltimore Orioles, so that's exciting as well. We out for now. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Take care.